Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We are ready to begin this morning's special board meeting. The special board meeting of July 15th, 2019 is now called to order. The time is 10:01 a.m. At this time, we request that all electronic devices be put in the silent mode. The agenda can be found at the district's website, www.leeschools.net. Navigate to the Leadership tab and choose School Board. We would like to take this opportunity to remind the members of the public of the district's mission, which is to ensure that each child achieves his or her highest personal potential, and the district's vision to be a world-class school system. This morning's agenda includes public comment, 1 consent action item, as well as 12 items for public hearing, and 4 items under other business. Board members, is there a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Please record your vote.
I got it.
Motion passes. Thank you. Motion passes 4-0. The next item on the agenda is public comment. Attorney Gabriel, please address the agenda item of public comment.
Thank you, Ms. Patrica. School board policy provides the opportunity at this point in the meeting to address the board concerning any matter on this meeting's agenda or any other matter relevant to the operation of the school district. If you completed a card and submitted it to me before the meeting began, you will be called in the order of the card submitted. If you did not submit a card but still wish to address the board this evening, the Vice Chair will give you an opportunity in a moment to express that desire. The rules concerning comment are posted in the back of the room. The board does not respond during public comment time to remarks made by speakers. At the end of the public comment period, the Vice Chair will address the assignment of any concerns or requests made during public comment to the Superintendent. Speakers and those attending the meeting are expected to act in a respectful manner. Attacks on individuals or abusive comments are prohibited. Speakers who fail to follow these rules regarding quorum should be ruled out of order and will be. Any speaker continuing with such remarks will be required to relinquish the lectern per Board Policy 1.11. Time per speaker is 3 minutes, Madam Vice Chair. I do not have any cards.
Okay, is there anybody in the audience who did not fill out a blue card who wishes to address the board in public comment? I see no hands. That closes public comment. Next is the approval of the action item in the agenda under consent. Is there a motion to approve the agenda's consent action item?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Jordan, seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Please record your vote. Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Adkins, please introduce any administrators in attendance with a new assignment that were approved under the consent agenda.
Okay, it'd be my pleasure. The first one is Mason Clark, Edgewood Academy Assistant Principal. Next, Christian Engelhardt, Cape Coral High School, from Assistant Principal to Principal. Amy Saffron, Lehigh Senior High School, Teacher to Assistant Principal. Veronica Young, Lehigh Senior High School teacher to assistant principal. On vacation this week, or she would have been here. Next one, Nikita Watson, Lehigh Middle principal to now school principal MMM. Next one, Christopher Drake, Cypress Lake High School teacher to Bonita Springs High School assistant principal. Next, Tony Washington Knight, Franklin Park Elementary Specialist School Intervention Support to Fort Myers High School assistant principal. Jeremy Derringer, Mariner High School teacher to Island Coast High School assistant principal. And Maria Hunt, Tortuga Preserve Elementary teacher to Manatee Elementary assistant principal. See if I missed anyone. Okay, I think those are the ones in attendance today. Well, thank you.
Thank you. I know that you're all here for the exciting policy changes we're about to make, but if you don't want to sit through that process, please feel free to get up and exit now if you'd like.
Okay.
You're right.
Okay, that's good to know.
We can adopt it now too.
Mr. Atkins, before closing the regular meeting and opening the public hearing, I'd like you to present your recommendations for this morning's public hearing items, please.
I will be happy to do so. One thing I do want to point out is that the policy, to be in compliance with policy 1.10, we have to have an extraordinary vote on the board, which means one more than majority. So that normally would be 5 votes. We only have 4 people in attendance today. However, there is a 90-day exception to policy that would allow us to bring it forward in the case of an emergency, and in this case, because we're talking about something that deals, all these policies deal with safety and security of the school district. I'm recommending that we move forward to do this. It does require us that if we do that, that we come back within 90 days and make sure that we have the regular majority of the board vote on this policy. So we would do that anyway. So this is just to get them in place so that we could start school and make sure they're in place, but then we'll, of course, bring them back for, again, another approval process as required by policy. Okay? So the first, just to take you through the different ones, first is approval of policy 2.01, district-wide sign-in procedure and campus control to meet compliance requirements of Senate Bill 7026 and 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. Second is approval to revise policy 2.02, civility, conduct of parents, guardians, visitors, and staff to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. Next is approval to revise policy 2.03, campus disorders and trespassing to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. Fourth, approval of the policy to revise policy 2.11, safety to meet compliance requirements of Senate Bill 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. Approval to revise Policy 2.12, Site Procedures for Emergency Egress Drills to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. 6, approval to revise Policy 2.14, Monitoring Safety and Security of District Facilities to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. 7, approval to adopt Policy 2.16, Threat Assessment Teams to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this adoption shall be July 16, 2019. 8, approval to revise Policy 2.31, Vandalism and Malicious Mischief to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. 9, approval to revise Policy 2.32, Lost or Stolen Property to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. 10, approval to revise Policy 4.08, Zero Tolerance for School-Related Crimes to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. Number 11, approval to revise Policy 9.07, Inspections to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. And 12, approval to revise Policy 9.08, School Fire Safety to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019.
Thank you, Dr. Atkins. We will now recess this special school board meeting and open the public hearing. As indicated, the public hearing this morning is to consider 1, approval to revise Policy 2.01, district-wide sign-in procedures and campus control. 2, approval to revise Policy 2.02, civility, conduct of parents, guardians, visitors, and staff. 3, approval to revise Policy 2.03, campus disorders and trespassing. 4, approval to revise Policy 2.11, safety. 5, approval to revise Policy 2.12, site procedures for emergency egress drills. 6, approval to revise Policy 2.14, monitoring safety and security of district facilities. 7, approval to adopt Policy 2.16, threat assessment teams. 8, approval to revise Policy 2.31, vandalism and malicious mischief. 9, approval to revise Policy 2.32, lost or stolen property. 10, approval to revise Policy 4.08, zero tolerance for school-related crimes. 11, approval to revise Policy 9.07, inspections. And 12, approval to revise Policy 9.08, school fire safety. At this time, the public will be invited to speak on these 12 items. The time allowed for comment is 3 minutes. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board on these 12 items? Seeing none, I will now close this public hearing and reconvene the regular school board meeting of July 15th, 2019. Dr. Atkins, please restate your recommendations for this morning's public hearing items.
Yeah, the first is approval to revise Policy 2.01, district-wide sign-in procedures and campus control to meet compliance requirements of 7026 and 7030.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve to revise Policy 2.01, district-wide sign-in procedures and campus control to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
Madam Vice Chair, if I may interrupt just a second. Of course, you heard the superintendent suggest before that this was, because of circumstances, this is an emergency and that we're asking for you to approve it under that basis as an emergency. So the motion should reflect that this is an emergency, then that's the reason and the basis that the approval is being suggested at this time. Just acknowledge.
So then you've heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve an emergency revision to the policy?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Approved by Ms. Vaughn, seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Any discussion? Please record your vote. Motion passes 4-0.
Next one is approval to revise policy 2.02, civility, conduct of parents, guardians, visitors, and staff
As an emergency.
as an emergency.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve an emergency revision to policy 2.02, civility, conduct of parents, guardians, visitors, and staff to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Any discussion? Please record your vote.
Gotta go to board docs.
Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins?
Number 3, recommend emergency approval to revise policy 2.03, campus disorders and trespassing.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve an emergency revision to policy 2.03, campus disorders and trespassing, to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Jordan, seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Any discussion? Please record your vote. Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins?
Next recommendation is recommend emergency approval to revise policy 2.11, safety.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation that the board approve an emergency revision to policy 2.11, safety, to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
Second.
Moved by Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Any discussion?
I have one question.
Ms. Jordan?
Okay, my question is on number 4B, where it says incident notification hotline. A, it says that they have to report this to the communication department. B, it says they have to call the incident notification hotline. Who is that? Is that here in the district?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, that's part of our communications department.
so in A, it's called communication department, and B, it's called the hotline? It's the same,
They operate the hotline, yes.
okay.
I have a question.
Ms. Giovanelli?
So is that 24 hours a day, and how many, like, how does that, describe that to me. How does that look?
Well, currently it works on a business time, and then after hours it rolls over to a phone with safety and security.
Okay.
So often it can be Mr. Parfit fielding a call after hours,
Right.
Oh. Okay,
member of his staff, but
okay.
I think eventually, good question, eventually we want to move to kind of an incident command or control center to where we have really an area dedicated in the building that focuses on this 24/7. Currently, we are doing it 24/7, but we're doing it 24/7 with existing staff, which means that existing staff members are on call 24 hours a day to be able to pick up the phone. But we are getting so large at this point that I think eventually we will wind up having that, which will help us, I think, later on if we ever have a major incident, or it can also be something that we used in the case of a hurricane, in one of our hardened areas of the building. I mean, this is kind of the long-term plan, but short-term plan right now is we have these calls come into the hotline and communications, and then they roll over to safety and security staff after business hours.
And if you all recall, the safety and security is my thing on the strategic plan. All the board members
Oh,
have
you
a
said
thing.
we're gonna
And
have a
I had
meeting.
asked
Yes,
the board
workshop.
if we could go into executive session to discuss this specific item. So
That would be
without getting
great.
into too much detail in public about it because of safety and security. I'm
I
pretty sure
just-
the superintendent's working on making that happen.
Okay.
Okay.
I just seen two different things on A and then B. It was like contradicting itself. It's like, who do we call?
Yeah,
So thank you for that.
Yeah.
I did remember that.
More questions, but I can hold it
We'll
to
do
that.
it then.
Okay.
Any other comments? Questions? Okay, please record your vote.
Already did.
Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins.
Next recommendation is recommend emergency approval to revise policy 2.12, site procedures for emergency egress drills.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation for emergency approval to revise policy 2.12, site procedures for emergency egress drills to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Any discussion?
I do have
Ms.
discussion.
Giovanelli.
So, okay, this is really important. I attended the FSBA, they had at the conference this summer, they had the Parklands, I believe he was the investigator. I can't really remember. I'm sorry, I don't remember. But he went through detail of what happened in Parkland. And one of the big problems that they had is when the law enforcement showed up, nobody knew where Building 12 was. No one had a schematic. No one, they stumbled around trying, there was no one there giving them direction. I mean, it was just a really, blunder of errors starting days before the incident. But one thing that I thought of, and this actually falls under Trey, so, and with the emergency, our local law enforcement, is there something that can, like, they could be able to pull up, because nobody, only the SRO, one SRO knows the school, and if he's injured or not available, I mean, not able to give direction where the active shooter might be at. So, I mean, so if they had a schematic of the, able to pull up the schematic of the school and see where where Building 5 is or whatever it's called, that law enforcement would have that immediate to their hands. It would something that would obviously be, I would think, confidential, but what they found out was that most of the shooters that have come to the school knew the school better than the law enforcement that showed up. And so that is really a big deal, at least for me. So I'm thinking how we give our emergency force, when you're discussing, I don't know if that's something that you could, technology that you can, and that it would be at the law enforcement's hands immediately. It's not something that everyone needs to know, so I think it could go back to our meeting, but I think it's something important that maybe you can work on or look into, but that was just really important for me to, if it's something that we can, as a school district, can create for law enforcement to have the quickest response possible. That was part of the problem that they had at Parkland, the reaction. And then you had law enforcement that came from a different county that did not know the school. I mean, it was just apparently where the school was on the line. It was like I said, a blunder of things that could have saved lives.
So that's a really good question because we are working on those very issues right now. So without giving away too much at a public meeting, we can say that we are working to integrate our system so that law enforcement have direct access, and B, that we have proposed a project in the FY20 operating budget that would also help address the mapping of the schools to provide a consistent information, consistent map, and consistent terminology for when multiple law enforcement agencies respond to an incident.
Awesome. And then one more thing that I learned also in that seminar or whatever. They also said, okay, so the second floor, I think it was 3 floors in Building 12. The second floor, there was no loss of life there at all. And that's because he was not able to see in the rooms. So one of the concerns that I have with the innovative school is they're wanting glass buildings. That is something that they are trying to get away from because it's just, it makes the students very vulnerable. So I would hope that, Mr. Parfit, you are involved in the new schools and making sure that everyone is safe regarding the new, if it's something changes in any kind of building of new schools, that we don't have glass buildings wide open for just the picking of our students and from a shooter standpoint. And that's because I know that's what saved everyone on the second floors. They were unable to see in the rooms because he never actually walked in one room at all. He just stuck the gun somehow in the window or something, I don't know, and just shot at random. So that was my other concern is when I saw a big glass building in the innovative school, I was like petrified that that's just makes them too vulnerable. So
It was hard corners. That was, everybody was behind the line for the hard corners. And I've confirmed 12,000 times with Dr. Atkins and Mr. Parfit that we do have hard corners. And I can't fathom that we would build a building that didn't have hard corners in all classrooms going forward. I mean, I'm speaking for them, but it's the hard corners that you're talking about. Every single person on the second floor was behind the line for the hard corner.
yeah, I just want to make sure I don't have that conversation, so
Yeah.
I'm
No, I
bringing it at the table.
No, I
So,
understand.
thank you very much.
Any other comments, questions? Please record your vote. Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins?
Next recommendation, recommend emergency approval to revise policy 2.14, monitoring safety and security of district facilities.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation for the board's emergency approval to revise policy 2.14, monitoring safety and security in district facilities to meet the compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins.
Seventh recommendation, recommend emergency approval to adopt policy 2.16, threat assessment teams.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation for the board's emergency approval to adopt policy 2.16, threat assessment teams, to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this adoption shall be July 16th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Moved by Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Dr. Atkins? I'm sorry, motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins?
Eighth recommendation, recommend emergency approval to revise policy 2.31, vandalism and malicious mischief.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation for the board's emergency approval to revise policy 2.31, vandalism and malicious mischief, to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Moved by Ms. Vaughn, seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins?
Ninth recommendation, recommend emergency approval to revise policy 2.32, lost or stolen property.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation for the board's emergency approval to revise policy 2.32, lost or stolen property, to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Any discussion? Ms. Giovanelli.
So I am in support of this today. It's really important that we are on top of our lost and stolen items immediately, so I just want to express that. I think it's important to kind of keep our pulse on each district and property, because it's really, it's important for the community to understand that we're working diligently to make sure that that happens efficiently and financially responsible for these items. So I'm in support of it. Just want to say that today.
Any other discussion? Please record your vote. Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins.
Recommendation, recommend emergency approval to revise policy 4.08, zero tolerance for school-related crimes.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation for the board's emergency approval to revise policy 4.08, zero tolerance for school-related crimes, to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Jordan. Is there any discussion?
I just had one question on line 61, where it says, "in the best interest of the student and the school district board." Is that right? Or is it just going to be cleaned up, or?
Which one?
61. Line 61.
It would relate to the board as well, especially in those cases that would come to the board's attention for expulsion or something similar to that.
Okay. Because I see it on following up on that, so, okay, thank you. That was it. That's my question.
Any other discussion or questions? Seeing none, please record your vote. Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins.
11th recommendation, recommend emergency approval to revise policy 9.07, inspections.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation for the board's emergency approval to revise policy 9.07, inspections, to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16th, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Moved by Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Jordan. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Motion carries 4-0. Dr. Atkins.
Last recommendation, recommend emergency approval to revise policy 9.08, school fire safety.
You've heard the superintendent's recommendation for the board's emergency approval to revise policy 9.08, school fire safety, to meet compliance requirements of SB 7026 and SB 7030. The effective date of this revision shall be July 16, 2019. Is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Moved by Ms. Vaughn, seconded by Ms. Giovanelli. Any discussion? Seeing none, please record your vote. Motion carries 4-0. Next item on the agenda is other business. Board member comments. Ms. Giovanelli.
I have none.
Ms. Jordan.
The only comment that I would have is that I've been going around and visiting the sites where they're feeding the children, and it's a really good response. Parents are happy, the kids are excited, and it's a good feeling that they're getting food.
Awesome. Ms. Vaughn.
I have none.
Ms. Morgan.
I have
I've got some, but I want to save them for when the full board is here because I had a tremendous experience out in Indianapolis, and I really want to share that with everybody, so I'm going to wait. The other thing I'll tell you is a funny story. My son, who's 13, he's not here, he's up north, and I talked to him after the 4th of July, and I said, essentially, 4th of July is over, it's like we're back to school. And he was like, Mom, that might be true for your job, but it's not true for me, I'm a kid, leave me alone. So while we all might be in the back-to-school mindset, I caution myself against, taking the last few weeks of summer away from my children, which I've essentially already done. So, not that they don't love learning, Dr. Atkins. They love every minute in our schools. They also love their freedom. We will move on to...
If I might, I was asked by Chair Gittens to read a note on her behalf. This is recording Finance Advisory Committee meetings. At the March 12, 2019 action meeting, the board discussed a motion by Ms. Giovanelli to direct the superintendent and the board chair to work together to schedule advisory committee meetings to be televised. I worked with the superintendent and Lauren Stillwell to purchase recording equipment that we received several months ago. Ms. Patrica, sorry the way it broke, made a motion to table Ms. Giovanelli's motion. However, the motion failed 2-5. The original motion passed 5-2. Ms. Patrica discussed the already passed motion with the Finance Advisory Committee chair and the committee to encourage them to influence the board to change our decision. The fact that the motion was passed months ago means we should have gone forward as soon as possible. This action will help the issue of the public coming and taping the meetings on their own. We will have a reliable original copy of the proceedings. Therefore, the July 17, 2019 Finance Committee meeting and all subsequent meetings of all Board Advisory Committee meetings will be recorded as voted by a 5-2 vote of the Lee County School Board on March 12, 2019. And then there's a chart as well. I asked to add this to the record for today. I'll submit that to the recording secretary. Thank you.
And the next item on the agenda under other business, Attorney Gabriel, is your comments.
Yes, thank you. As the board directed the school board attorney to create a legislative liaison policy, which we have produced and provided a copy of that to the board for your consideration and further direction. This is a draft. It was only intended to be presented to the board as my understanding, our understanding of what could potentially be this position and what might be the interest of the board as it related to the position. So your comments and suggestions, I could either take them orally now in discussion, or you could present those to me in writing and we'll address them.
Okay, so why don't we go around twice, and I'll start with Ms. Vaughn.
Okay, actually, it's my feeling that we do not need this position at all, that we have our board, we have reporting to the board our lobbyists that report to Dr. Atkins, and they also, we kind of got that straightened out at the end of the year, actually a month or two ago, that they should be providing their updates to everybody on the board, so I think that's straightened out. We have our legislative representative to School Board Association. We also have an alternative. I just feel like, and I've been asking, I don't know if you're prepared to give this, Attorney Gabriel, but how much would this cost? I feel that there's a lot of redundancies in the position. I feel like, so not only would we have one person that would be the main contact, but, and I'm not going to go through, I've got the policy marked up, and I understand it's a draft, but still, it's at the core of what we're talking about. We're still going to have school board members as individuals. That was made clear when we talked about this, to go and interact with the legislators. This really takes it way beyond talking about the Board of County Commissioners, and I just see too many redundancies for what we already have, and I also see that there's going to be a huge cost, because you're going to be adding, if half of this actually winds up in policy, if the board wants to continue with this, leading legislative advocacy events and meetings. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that this liaison is going to be setting up meetings? For instance, last year, we had our lobbyists set up a meeting, kind of a round table. So are we going to have two? Are we going to just have that person work with the it just, bottom line, too many redundancies and a really high cost, because it's going to add a lot to the local travel. So personally, I don't feel like we even need to create this additional position. I don't see that. And secondly, I wanted to add something. When we voted for School Board Association, the representative, should we not, I'm going to turn this to Chair, we should have voted for the alternative as well, right? And the alternate, I'm sorry. And I was looking on the website, the FBLA, I don't know why I always mess up that acronym, but today is the deadline. Have we already turned in our paper for Miss Jordan? Have we already turned that in? No. And today's the deadline for that form. And so I don't know if that's something that you're going to propose, Ms. Chair Patrica, that we do that other vote, or, I mean, because we need the alternate in place as well, right?
Is that a point of information you want me to respond?
Yes, if you would.
Yeah, that was my bad. I didn't ask for an alternate. It's certainly something that we can discuss today if you'd like, if somebody wants to make a motion. It is, the more important thing is the primary, making sure we have a primary on record. The other thing we need to do, which I'm sure you're going to bring up, Ms. Giovanelli, is have an alternate for the Board of Directors for the FSBA as well. So.
Oh, okay, and I just added this since we're talking about the liaison position, but again, my bottom line is, because I know I do tend to ramble sometimes, is that I don't support creating a whole new position. I think it's duplication of duties and possible clashing of things that are scheduled and huge additional cost. So that's I'm done.
Ms. Jordan.
I don't believe that we need to have another policy either. And I believe that when this all came out, it was just to make things cleaner and just more condensed. I don't think there was anything else in mind other than just that. But as far as cost-wise, there really is no additional cost because we're all doing this anyway. This is what we do. When we choose whoever we are on this board, we choose to go and meet with our local county commissioner, city council, whomever, that's our right to do that, and we are doing that. So as far as an additional cost, there is no additional cost related to that because it's something that we are already doing. Truthfully, I can live with it either way, but I do understand what I believe to have been the purpose of this was to bring it all just together, just to consolidate. So the separation of the FSBA versus local, I just don't think we need another policy.
Ms. Giovanelli.
And that's exactly what I think. I mean, we already have, we don't need, because you said position, you're calling it, but I think it's just, we don't need the policy. I think that is what you were trying to say, I'm thinking. I don't know.
Policy would establish this, this position, yeah.
But we already have it, like, so I don't think we need the policy I mean, so that's my thought. I just don't think we need a policy. But I do, however, think we need clarification, because I think that was where the confusion happened and the muddy the waters, because I think we just need to, I think if we'd have got the alternate, then I think it would have helped understand things a little bit better. I just think that we missed a step. So that's my only thing. I don't think we need to have a policy in place. So my second thought is, do we wait until we have our other board members here for the alternate? And so I would probably ask that we wait. I mean, that's my thought. So, because we have 3 people missing, and I think that it's important who else might be interested in the alternate position. When you were, Chris, and this is for you, who was the alternate? I was getting so confused. Who was the alternate before? That was the question I think I was trying to understand, is why didn't the alternate just move in place, or was that you're 2 years up? So that's where all that needs to, I want that kind of cleared up for all of us, because I don't know, none of us knew exactly. So if we could get that
All right, I
cleared
want to
up.
get Ms. Morgan's comments because I'll
Okay.
clarify all of that.
So that's just where I'm at. And even as far as the FSBA alternate, I would just assume that wait for everybody as well, because we don't know who wants to do that. But that's where I'm just want it all kind of cleared up with everybody. I think everybody got all a little bit off track. So that's all.
Ms. Morgan?
Hi, thank you. I don't believe it belongs in policy, and so I actually wrote a lengthy email to the board attorney copying Dr. Adkins regarding the proposal that was made by Ms. Patrica. I don't believe that the Lee County FSBA legislative liaison and the school board liaison to the consortium should be filled by I believe those two should be filled by the same person. I don't think that there's a relationship between the FSBA legislative liaison and the FSBA representative at NSBA. I don't think there's a compelling argument for making the legislative liaison and the school board of the FSBA board of directors one and the same. And I think that the relationship of the board with the school district lobbyist requires clarification, since this lobbyist is a district employee. Any dotted line relationship should be agreed upon by the board, either annually or in a board workshop. It's a matter of board protocol. So now that we've met, I'm going to send out my email to all of you so that you know what my thinking is more specifically on this. But I would agree we need to clarify. I think it needs to be in protocol. I don't think we need a policy, and I don't think we need an umbrella designation that one person is the contact for virtually all interaction with political partners and and political partners. So those are my comments. Thank you. So also no cost. There's no cost associated with this. Essentially, it's wrapping a bunch of functions that are already being done together into one.
Thank you, Ms. Morgan. So this was an epic fail on my part. When I first brought this up, I did not explain it remotely close to the way it should have been explained. I agree with you. We do not need this position at all. We do not need this position. However, I do think it will make us more effective as a board in terms of our legislative advocacy. And I think the reason why it was brought to us in the form of a policy by Attorney Gabriel is because we didn't know yet, without knowing the shape that it would take or what the content of it would be, I don't think that he could offer an opinion as to whether it should be policy or protocol. So that's why we're discussing it in the form we're discussing it today. There are no additional expenses associated with this. These are expenses that were all incurred by either me or the board chair as the legislative liaison. In fact, I see potential savings here. Right now, we have up to 7 board members attending consortium events, and I think a strong argument could be made that we only need 1. You've been to those consortium meetings with me. That is certainly something that one person can handle. So that there's some significant savings in terms of the annual trip to the consortium each year. Again, the redundancies, I don't see this as a redundancy. In fact, I see this as doing away with redundancies. When I've been in this position for 2 years. Typically, this position would end in November during our reorg, when we would decide who's going to be our federal legislative liaison, who's going to be our state legislative liaison. Given the fact that FSBA is asking for a new legislative liaison, I thought it was timely for me to bring this now, because it would be nice for us to have a legislative liaison in place going into the beginning of committee meetings. So that's why I brought it up now. I mean, technically, I'm the board's legislative liaison until November, but what good does it do me to stay in that position when I'm going to hand it off to somebody else in November and committee meetings are already well underway? Does that make sense? There are some sunshine issues with the way we do it right now. So I was the legislative liaison this year. Let's use this year as an example. I'm legislative liaison, and the board is traveling to, the board chair is traveling to Tallahassee for individual meetings with our legislators. If she has either a positive or a negative experience with the delegation while she's in Tallahassee, she can't really talk about that with me. And if it was a negative experience, she shouldn't really be talking about it from the dais either. So if we have this function consolidated in one person, then we don't have any sunshine issues. We can have those discussions, we can provide feedback, whoever does it. And again, it's not me. I have no interest in this position whatsoever. I'm looking to make us more effective as a board. So if a member of our board is the legislative liaison and they go up to Tallahassee and they come back with feedback, they provide that feedback to the board, but they also are the one that works with the lobbyist. And it allows us to consolidate our efforts. And when I talk about leading a meeting, what I mean is exactly what happened in the Department of Education. So we were all sitting around the table, and it would be the legislative liaison that would lead that meeting. So the legislative liaison would be working with the lobbyist up to that point to determine the best strategy and approach in terms of how that meeting should unfold, what information should be presented. It's not important for the board chair to run that meeting. It's important for the person who's the expert, who's carrying that water for the board to run that meeting. Does that make sense? And I'm getting this from my interactions and my experiences with other organizations. When I go to Washington, D.C. for FSBA, the president of the FSBA is not running those meetings. The federal relations chair is running those meetings because that's her expertise. Does that make sense? Am I making sense, or are we more clear on why I brought this up in the first place? I wasn't trying to pull one over on anybody. I wasn't trying to, I really am just trying to make us more effective as a board. And without having this protocol in place, I didn't know what my job was. Like, I didn't know, am I the person who's supposed to be dealing with the county commission? And the reason why I included the county commission is because during my time as legislative liaison, the superintendent and I visited with county commissioners individually to try to get them to allow us to put a special election for the half-penny sales tax on a ballot. And was that my job as the legislative liaison to do that, or was that the board chair's job? This provides us as a board with clarity as to what that role is. And that's why I put all of that out there. Does anybody have any questions as to?
Well, I think that with the city councils and the county commission, we invite them all to the table as we did with the legislators, so that way we're all there as well. And we're speaking as one. And I think that makes it better because they see us as one unit versus 7 individuals.
Right.
And I just think that that's something that maybe our legislatives, Carol and them can, set that up for us too, because I don't really know what, and I asked her to please let me know, what do they do when there's no session? What are they doing? And so I'm still waiting to hear back from that, so I know what they actually do the whole time that they're here in town.
And to a certain extent, I think that Ms. Green has asked us to make sure that she's present for those meetings because she wants to be on the same page with us and with them.
Sure.
That being said, I'm going to have lunch at a place that supports foster children with one of the members of our delegation because he's a strong supporter of foster children. That's not me discussing, well, we haven't approved our legislative platform yet, so I won't be discussing it with him, obviously. But, that's a relationship-building exercise. That's not me as a representative of the board. I think we're more effective as a body if we have someone representing us in the conversations. If something particularly controversial will come up this year, do we need a member of this board to travel to Tallahassee to speak during committee meetings? That person, in my mind, should be the legislative liaison. Not something we've done in the past. Could that be an additional expense? Absolutely. I don't know what the legislature is going to come up with next year or the year after. I'd like that to be an option that's available, and I'd like us to have a go-to person to do that. Am I making sense?
But that would come back to the board anyway for approval.
It would have to come back to the board because
Anything
it's out-of-county
we-
travel,
expenses
and
now.
it's not something we would automatically approve.
Right, so I think as a board, we would make that decision and go that route. I think, so I don't think we need policy for that. My other thing the FSBA, they have it in here, and I think, is that my position they were trying to incorporate? That's why I was getting confused, what he was trying to put in policy, the one that I'm going to
No,
be.
there's two.
So so it was confusing to all of us, or to me. So, so that was the other question, and that was voted on by FSBA last summer, so it alternates,
Right.
and it is a 2-year.
Yep.
So I'm going to finish up your year. And so I kind of figured that out because Susan and I made a call to Ms. Peterson and FSBA and kind of got clarity on that. So that's where the alternate thing was a big.
That's in their bylaws. That's why you automatically become that person.
Exactly.
Because you're lifted up because of the bylaws that they have. They do not have bylaws, they do not have bylaws as far as the FSBA legislative liaison. It is just we, as a body, we choose a person, and that's that person.
Right.
There is no bylaws that they have for
Right, they didn't
that.
vote, we did.
We have to vote, and we say, this is our person, and we let them know, we notify them. But as far as the director, which you are moving up because Chris is
The alternate.
alternate, so you just move up, and then we have to replace that, your position as an alternate, as well as have an alternate for legislative.
And we're all in agreement to wait to do that on the 30th. That doesn't matter, right?
That's how it's clear.
Not
That's
until
right.
September.
It's just
The
got
next
all
board meeting
confused.
isn't until September, so we definitely have plenty of time for that. All right, let's go around, and if you have a second round of comments, I'd ask that you direct them toward the board attorney in terms of changes that he would make to a potential protocol that would be agreed upon by the board, because I'm hearing that we don't want a policy, but we would like to have some kind of a protocol in place guiding us in terms of what this position does, similar to the protocols that we have in place for our other liaison positions throughout the county.
I heard what you said. I'm probably still as confused to the extent that you have given further direction, but what I need to do, candidly, is go into the protocols and look to some of the legislative or other positions and see where maybe those positions need to be strengthened or amended to accommodate what might be the comments that you've had, because otherwise you're going to have duplication no matter how, unless you take and address those. So that seems to be the direction I believe I need to go to based on the conversation you've had.
Good, so you don't want to hear from us again?
Of course I do.
Well,
Always want to hear from you.
I think maybe we'll allow the attorney to do that before we go around again. Is that fair? Is everybody happy with that? Yay!
That would be unless I misunderstood the comments that you made, but I think clearly, I do understand now why the conversation came up as to protocols versus the, policy, and clearly before I expected it to be this position that you were looking for to create to accommodate those discussions, but now it seems like you're all in the same understanding as to what you want to do, but you want to address it a little differently, so.
Can I just maybe to clarify something?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, we've been using the word liaison here, but last night I went into the, not so much the bylaws, but the description on the website, and FSBA calls it the Legislative Committee Representative. So perhaps we should, not to confuse, are we going to be a liaison in the county, and that, okay, so Ms. Jordan's position is, she is our Legislative Committee Representative to FSBA. And we need, right.
Beautiful.
Okay. Now, what I'm understanding, and here's where I'm a little confused, because it sounds like what we're doing is saying, well, automatically, whoever we have as the Legislative Committee Representative will do all these other things. And that is something.
This is going away. This doesn't exist.
No, but I mean,
What I'm
no,
saying
but what
is,
you.
whoever is the legislative liaison for the board,
No,
whoever is
But wait,
in.
we don't have a
I understand.
We have a
But we
representative.
do have a legislative liaison. We have a federal legislative liaison, and we have a state legislative liaison.
That's what we call it.
I'm seeking to clarify that role. And as part of clarifying that role, whoever is our legislative liaison will be the representative to the FSBA. That is what, so I'm looking to create an overarching position, and underneath that overarching position are items.
See, you are looking.
But we don't have to do it if you don't want to do it.
No, that's what I'm trying to get clear. Are you getting all this?
I'm listening very intently because the
Okay, so
confusion
what you're
that you're
saying
addressing are
is,
the
what
things
you would
that I've
like
been
to see
having.
is whoever we elect as the Legislative Committee Representative, Ms. Jordan is that.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, there's where I'm losing
What I'm
you.
saying is, I am currently the Lee County School Board State Legislative Liaison. In clarifying that role, I'd like us all to understand that as part of that role, I am the FSBA Legislative Representative. I am also the person who would lead meetings when we go up to Tallahassee as a board. I am also the person who would be the primary contact for our legislative delegation, should the superintendent, the lobbyist, and the legislative liaison determine that a trip during committee meetings is important, or a trip in addition to the Tallahassee FSBA conference that we do is necessary at some point during the legislative session.
Okay, and I
That's
guess
what I'm
because
saying.
I wasn't on the board a year ago when this happened, I didn't realize that was a separate thing that you were elected to. Or I didn't realize
it's
that
not
they
an
were
election.
melded.
It's not an
just
election,
like
it's during
equals.
our reorg meeting, we all go around and say,
This is
okay,
what I
I'll
wanna
take
do."
Uncommon Friends, I'll take DAC,
That's what
I'll take
happened.
this, I'll take that.
Okay.
But my
Hers was 2 years
role as the legislative liaison to the Finance Advisory Committee is very clear. We know what the role of a board member is as legislative liaison to a committee. We don't know what the role of a legislative liaison is for the board. Having come out of that position,
Okay.
knowing that it could be done much more effectively than it was done, maybe it's me, maybe I'm just an ineffective liaison, but, I mean, I was stepping on toes. You know, there was, why is the board chair doing that when that should be the role of the legislative liaison? And then, so you drop stuff, and then stuff ends up falling through the cracks because you're wondering, is the board chair doing that, or is that something the legislative liaison is supposed to do? Am I making sense?
No.
I'm not making sense?
No, you are, but I'm just trying to wrap my head around that particular part. I guess I'd forgotten during the reorg that in assigning committees, like the advisory, that we also did that. I would say that role then, if we already have that role and it's been ongoing,
Right.
I would suggest that it be something we elect rather than say, well, I want to do this, I want to do that.
You need a policy.
We actually kind of did. You
We
just
did.
You didn't realize it. Not even talking about Ms. Dort, I mean, when the alternate, whatever the alternate was, that was we all agreed to that.
Yeah, I was that.
So,
During reorg,
Madam Chair?
we don't vote. Ms. Morgan?
well, it's true.
Ms.
but-
Morgan?
Yes. I need to sign off. So my second round of comments would be that I'm just going to send you a copy of the memo that I sent to the board attorney, copying Dr. Adkins, in terms of, and I think it aligns with what the board attorney was speaking to, as well as Ms. Vaughn's comments about defining the roles and then figuring out what the alignment and relationships are between the roles. So I'm going to thank you for allowing me to attend the meeting, and have a great day, everybody. I'm saying goodbye. Bye.
My thoughts is I would like to table this discussion so that everybody's here, but we've already made a vote. I think we need to stick with what we've done. I think that we're working hard to work backwards then at that point, and we just get clarification and figure this all out. And so everybody understanding, part of the not understanding is we've got 3 new board members, and we need to just educate and clarify for each of us, including myself, apparently, and then go from there. That's my opinion. I mean, and then get our alternates in place, and let's move on, because we have more important things
We
to
do, I agree.
That's all.
Mr. Gabriel, do you have any other attorney comments?
No, but just to clarify this for one moment. So in the future, the next few, the time coming forward, I'm going to review some of the protocols and see whether or not there's some protocols that relate to the same topic that we're having that might be either amended or blended together to kind of address what we've been talking about here that I set up as a rule. That might help address that. I'm not going to modify the document that you have before you. I'm not going to making any changes. I'm just going to do that review, and I'll look forward to the conversation that the board will have if you're going to have further conversation with regard to this. And I might be able to give further direction or ask some further questions or direction from you at the next meeting for that purpose.
Great. And I apologize for the stepping out of the protocol in terms of the discussion we have. That's not typical at an action meeting, but this really is a discussion item. Dr. Atkins.
And we'll get Ms. Morgan's letter sent to us.
Yes. Well, she's going to send that. She's going to. If she forwards it to me, I'll pass it on to the full board.
Okay.
Good.
And then, I don't know what other districts do. Ms. Patrica, did you ever ask any?
I did a lot of research, and I was not able to find a description for
They don't-
legislative liaison for
We looked
board.
as well and did
Okay.
not see it
Well,
either.
that was important
In fact,
to know.
they
Thank
do,
you.
most districts do what you do. They have hired lobbyists, and they go out and they get direction from the board and the superintendent, and they proceed, and you guys set up a priority list of what they do, and they go out and do their thing, basically what the others do.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Dr.
you.
Atkins, do you have comments or reports for today?
I just need a little clarification and direction from the board. You did get the email from our school board attorney relative to the videotaping of our board advisory meeting, so I've asked Lauren to come up and clarify. But basically, at March 12th, is my understanding, is that we did have a motion to direct the superintendent to work with the chair to work on the recording and videotaping issue, which Chair Gittens did work with staff and Lauren to come up with the device that was that video equipment that was shown to you on the May 16th workshop. At that workshop, there was a recommendation to start the recordings in August. Okay, and I didn't have this information at the time when I spoke briefly to Chair before she left on vacation, so we were just a little bit, I think she's under the impression that we are starting now, but the direction back in March, as we understand it, was to research possibilities of which is what we did, and then brought that back to the board in May, and with the understanding that the board directed us to move forward in August. But I just want to be clear, because we have an advisory committee meeting that's coming up in 2 days from now, I believe, and on the 17th. and we want to make sure we're in compliance with what the board would like us to do. So I've asked Lauren to come up just to make sure and to add any more detail if I left something out.
We do have trainings for all the liaisons set up at the end of July and the beginning of August was our timeline based on the May recommendation, the May 16th recommendation. I can check with my team to see if we can record this Finance Advisory Committee coming up in July, but we were working towards the May, or excuse me, the August based on the May recommendation. So whatever y'all want to do is something we can accommodate.
You're correct. And I went over and I looked at all the different meetings as well after I received that email. And we did speak about making sure that all of the advisory committees were aware of it, and we were going to make sure that we put that on the applications, so that way when they're signing up for something, they know exactly what they're signing up for, and we were going to start it at the beginning of the new school year.
Great.
I don't see what the problem is.
My only thing is that, for me, from the vote from March, was that it was up to the superintendent and the chair when it really happened. So, because I think that's the actual vote, and that was my understanding, but
The vote was for them to, it actually was for, the motion was to direct the superintendent and the board chair to work together to schedule the, all advisories to be televised. So they were supposed to work together to get the equipment and to figure out, not the date on that, but, and that's when we had that other conversation about making sure that everybody was notified, because we want to make sure that our advisory boards are prepared for that. And that all of us were here for that.
My feeling is if it ain't broke, don't fix it. We had agreed as a board to start in August, so we'll stick with your timeline. You and your staff have already put that work in to schedule that, so is there consensus on that? Can we see consensus? Are we in agreement?
yeah, I mean, for me,
I mean, if you all want me to get trained before Wednesday, I'm happy to come down here tomorrow, and I'm sure you can find 5 minutes. Would you prefer to have tomorrow? Would you prefer to have Wednesday videotaped?
Do you have
irony
all
of
your
that
committee
is-
people?
I'm sorry?
Do you have all your committee people in line? And are they all on board? I mean,
I can't speak for them.
right, that's why we were waiting until
Okay.
school
All right,
started.
then we'll wait.
Okay.
Yes?
These aren't appointed until September,
So starting in August doesn't give them
correct?
the
They aren't even-
it doesn't matter.
the notice we wanted anyways.
It doesn't even matter.
Okay. All right, I think we're good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Good speech.
The only other thing I would say, I just want to express my appreciation. I know you feel the same, you know, in terms of the hard work of our schools relative to the school grades. I think we were extremely ecstatic with those, particularly that we have no DA schools. I mean, that's a fantastic result, so a lot of hard work. And when you think about some of the challenges that went behind this year's grades, for example, Island Coast High School with, you know, increasing the number of students taking biology exponentially, I mean, that was a really good result to get. Just a little clarification regarding the Pine Island one. You may have seen an I for Pine Island. That's because we had a number of students that opted out of that particular school. So it fell beneath the 95% requirement of the law to get a school grade. However, there's a memorandum that came out from the state today, Department of Education, and this normal part of the procedure is that you appeal that, and if you look at the current data of the school with the students that did take that test, if you feel that it is in compliance with the actual performance of the school, then you appeal for a grade, and that's typically what we will do in a case like this, and we would, I believe the data, that school is very strong, so I anticipate a positive result with that school as well. So I'm not at all concerned about the I, in that, you know, that could be appealed and become an A, which is what that school has been in years, in recent years. So we'll put together a more full result for the board because there's a lot of stuff behind the data that I think is important for you to be aware of, but, we're just now kind of going through those results and disaggregating them, looking school by school as Dr. Spiro works with his team on next year's plan. But a lot of hard work by our teachers and our school leaders and support staff.
Yeah, I'm really glad you brought that up, because I didn't have prepared comments for today, otherwise that normally would be on there. The fact that we have 0 DA schools is just, I mean, it blows my mind. The fact that we only had 1 last year and it wasn't really even really a D, and the fact that we have none this year. I mean, you and your staff should stand up and take a bow, because really the work that you've done is incredible. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is what we're here for, right? All right, next.
You have a question here?
So, but explain to me what the I means for Pine Island.
Incomplete, because if you don't test, you have to test 95% of your students, and they had enough students that opted out or were absent that day, so they had less than 95% tested.
Okay.
So that's what it
Thank you.
means.
Okay, on Monday, July 29th, there will be a board workshop at 9 a.m. At this point, having no other business to come before this body, I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
Second.
Seconded together.
Moved by Ms. Giovanelli, seconded by Ms. Vaughn. Please record your vote. It's not coming up. Yes, please vote for me. I vote yes. Motion carries 4-0. Meeting is